Thank you for listening to The Lawyer's Daughter. This is Jen Carroll, and this podcast does not have any video. I know I'm on YouTube, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Let's go get started. Hi, friends. It's August 25th, and it's the weekend. It's Sunday. And if you'd grant me a little personal privilege, I'd like to take just one quick minute. And I feel like I need to apologize for yesterday's podcast because I was exhausted. I talked really fast and I'd worked so hard on trying to compare and contrast the speeches that I just jammed myself up on time. And there's no point in me doing this if I'm incoherent. So my apologies. I'm very self-aware. Probably too self-aware, but thank you for joining me on this. Here's the thing. I'm losing my job in a week. I have time and I care so much. Like I could start crying. I care so much about this election. I care about our country in a fundamental way. And so I'm trying. There's not a lot I can do. I have a little bit of mobility limitations right now and some other things, but what I do have is the ability to hopefully synthesize some of this information and make you a better advocate for Harris and Walz. And fundamentally, that's what I'm trying to do. That's the Jen Carroll mission, is to hopefully arm you with what you need to go and have a discussion. And let me give you an example. It happened this morning on Twitter. I can't remember the woman, Pam, who is a lawyer. She's fantastic, and she's often good at pointing out things that are ironic. And she was pointing something out this morning. And what I found out and discovered in going through responses is almost everybody doesn't understand. You do if you've listened to this podcast, but almost everybody doesn't understand that the Democratic platform and the planks, meaning all the things they're going to fight for, is published and available. It happens as a product. It is a deliverable that's manifested at a convention. The platform is it. And it is out there. And this is one of the things I need to make sure everybody knows this. If you don't have this link, you've got to Google it really specifically, though, because you'll get duped. The old Biden platform is out there, and it comes up first in Google searches. So you need to be very specific in how you search this, but search it and bookmark it, because you're going to need to reply and pound it out and share it with everybody. And it's also a great thing for you to familiarize yourself with. And I think we'll start going through the platform this week because I'm realizing it's just so important to understand what we stand for and understand essentially the cornerstone document that explains everything clearly. So even if you get jammed up in a fight, not a fight, but a discussion, you have the source material. So here's how to Google it. This is really important. If you want to get the current Democratic platform, the one ratified at the DNC last week, you need to Google DNC 2024 platform, and then you need to not fall for the Biden one. I'm telling you right now, it still comes up in Google search number 1. It is a second one that essentially has a longer description. It's not a pithy description. It says something longer, like solidifying, or it has bad language. I've actually messaged the DNC right now that their links and things are a little bit ambiguous. But if you go in there, you'll then get a page that shows you the platform, and it has a summary. But in the paragraph, in the lightest type possible, not even bolded, I swear to God, it hurts. It says the platform is here. So I've posted it everywhere on Twitter. I'm going to be posting it on my other social media threads and on Facebook. But you need to have the link to the current Kamala Harris Walz platform. That's key. So this is, I thank you for giving me the grace here to say a little speech, but my thing is that's what I'm trying to do, is provide information to help all of us be better influencers because we understand the issues. And I don't think many Americans understand delegates ratify the platform at a convention. That's why it's another reason conventions are important, to have those discussions. All right, let's get over to talking about, this is my Sunday. Sunday and Saturdays are my podcasts are like sit back, relax, and let the sunshine beam into your body if you have sun, and let this wash over you. It's just a way for you to learn. So this is my Sunday edition of Trump's speech versus Kamala's speech. And I'm going to first break down, just like I did yesterday, I'll go through Donald's speech, kind of what I pulled out as things that I thought were worth looking at and how I categorized it. And mind you, there's so much content. This is really a tough job. And then I'll go through Kamala's, and then I'll compare them, just so you can get a feel. I want to kind of take you into each personality a little bit, and then I'll compare them for you. So let's talk about Donald Trump. His speech was on July 18 in 2024. His speech was defiant, determined, and hopeful. It mixed moments of intense patriotism and his Trumpian determination. He conveyed a sense of confidence and strength, and he did. I mean, that's one thing that Donald does that I think people are attracted to. He just comes out and acts like he knows what he's talking about. There you go. That's really what it is. He comes out and acts like he knows what he's talking about. Particularly, his strength is in recounting the survival of his assassination attempt. I'm going to really try to do this straight, guys. Here's what he said. I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God, Trump stated, framing his survival as a sign of divine protection and a reason to continue his fight for America. I'm just telling you guys straight out of Blues Brothers, mission from God. Trump's speech also conveyed a sense of urgency and resolve. He spoke about the need to restore the country from what he described as a state of decline under current leadership. And he said this will probably be the most important election in the history of our country. He wants to emphasize the critical nature of the upcoming election. It's a very important election for him. If he wins, he doesn't go to jail for a while. If he loses, accountability is going to smack him right in the head. Trump's central message focused on the need to restore American greatness by overcoming the current administration's perceived failures and returning to the policy and values he championed during his previous term. We're going to keep going, but this is so important because what you see here is his central message is to argue about somebody that's doing the job now, which is fine, but that guy's already said he's not going to keep doing the job. So what are you arguing against? This is classic in my low-key fact-checking podcast. He already is using, in his central message, using some of these weird kinds of arguments that don't carry any weight. And then he wants to return to the policies and values he championed during his previous term. But what are those? I don't know. Okay, so Trump emphasized the importance of strong leadership, and he said, no matter what obstacle comes our way, we will not break. We will not bend. We will not back down. And I will never stop fighting for you and your family and our magnificent country. This is really, really important. He talks about obstacles comes our way. We will not break. We will not bend. We will not back down. Well, we've seen it. That border bill is not passed because he did not want to bend or back down. And he wasn't even part of the process. That's what's so aggravating. But that's essentially the strength argument that he's making. Okay, I went through and tried to figure out the top 5 points that he talked about. Of course, the first was patriotism and unity. He said, as Americans, we're bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. Yow. Current leadership. He criticized the current administration. He said, we have totally incompetent leadership. This will be the most important election of our history. So blame me, Blamerson. But that's okay. We can hold each other accountable. That's really important. I just don't know what he's holding accountable. Economic revival. He said, I will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bringing down interest rates and lowering the cost of energy. All right, we're going to get into this on issues, but a lot of the inflation isn't anything about economics. It's really about corporate greed, but I don't need to refute these right now. Just want to make sure you look deeply into what this means, because a lot of this is generic, especially at this level of analysis. It feels a little generic. On national security, he said our borders will be totally secure. Our economy will soar. We will return law and order to our streets. And on social programs and healthcare, Trump touched on Social Security and Medicare, promising, I'm going to protect Social Security and Medicare. Now, these are just assertions. There's not arguments as to how he'll protect them. And we're going to look at platforms this week, or hopefully this week. We're going to look at platforms and take a look at what is really being done. Both of these candidates can say anything they want, but we owe it to ourselves as Americans to make sure their plans are what we want. So there may be plans that you don't want. You need to know about that. Speeches are stories, and here's how Trump structured his story. And this is probably the most fun part of a speech, is to really understand, that storyline. That's what draws you in and keeps you paying attention. So Trump began with his personal account of surviving his assassination attempt. He described the event in vivid detail, drawing the audience into his narrative and using it to underscore his message of fighting for America and divine favor. I'm just going to throw that in there because that's mission from God stuff right there. This personal story set the stage for the rest of the speech, where he moved from the individual, his survival, to the collective, the nation's survival. So he found his arc. Get it? I survived. You can survive. We're all going to survive. He transitioned from this narrative, critiquing the current administration. And he said, under this administration, we are indeed a nation in decline. But he never explains why. All right, so here's how he's going to, he went on to discuss how he's going to restore the country. But again, his restoration is just more kind of accusations. So when he was recounting the assassination attempt and his response to it, he tried to position himself as a survivor and a fighter, someone who's committed to leading America through its challenges. He said, but I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, fight, 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 he recounted. This rallied his supporters at the event. And again, I'm not covering what happened at the event itself because that's just a whole nother level of analysis. But he's using that to energize his base and make the message seem more personal and compelling. So that was the Trump speech. If you walked into it, it's a little bit like he had his first speech to the nation as president. Was that dark speech about how America was in this dark period. And of course, a lot of us thought he was just referring to Obama dark. I don't know. All right, so here we are with Kamala Harris. She did this speech a week ago at the DNC on August 22nd. And her speech, it was just last Thursday. Her speech was a mix of optimism, determination, and resolve. And she spoke with conviction about America's future and the upcoming election's critical importance. Her speech conveyed hope as she laid out her vision for a united and inclusive America. And she said, I love this country with all my heart. So the context of her speech was set against the backdrop of what she described as a pivotal moment in the nation's history where voters must choose between continuing progress or returning to the past. She conveyed a sense of urgency, especially when discussing the threat she believes Trump poses to the American democracy. And she warned, and she said, the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. This created an inspiring yet cautionary tone. And her central message was focused on the importance of unity, progress, and protecting American democracy from the dangers she associates with a second Trump term. So this is super interesting because they both are going after if they are restored to office. And I think Trump has to kind of use Biden as the figurehead, but he can definitely associate Kamala with Biden's decisions. And Kamala at the same time can use Trump's track record and pull on that. So they're both looking at our past administrations, but Trump's message was overcoming perceived failures and returning to the policies and values he championed. Hers is to focus on unity, progress, and protecting American democracy. Okay, so there you go. There's kind of your juxtaposition of the main messages. If you could see what I'm looking at to try to summarize these, because these are two very different pages right now. Anyway, her top 5 points, as identified by me, Again, looking at what was said on economic justice, Harris said building the middle class will be a defining goal of her presidency. On reproductive rights, she said that Donald Trump had picked members of the U.S. Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. On national security, she said, as commander-in-chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest and most lethal fighting force in the world. And on environmental protection, she addressed the need to... there was nothing on environmental protection in Trump's speech at all. She addressed the need to combat climate change, and she said the freedom to breathe clean air, drink clean water, and live free from the pollution that fuels the climate crisis is her goal. And finally, of course, civil rights. Harris, I'm like laughing because where would Trump ever have anything about civil rights in his talk, right? Harris said the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride are just some of the civil rights and personal freedoms she wants to protect. So what was Harris's story arc? She too reflected on a personal story, her upbringing, and the lessons she learned from her parents, particularly by her mother. She showed how her mother's journey from India to the U.S. and her experience as a single mom influenced her commitment to public service. Harris said, my mother was brilliant, 5-foot-tall brown woman with an accent, illustrating her mom's challenges and what she had to overcome. I love it. I always think, I imagine her as quite the little spitfire. Especially, I'm short, so we really have to spitfire because nobody even sees us. I get lost in a crowd so fast. Harris transitioned from the personal narrative in her story to a broader discussion of her career, highlighting her work as a prosecutor and attorney general, where she fought for justice and the rights of the vulnerable. It's interesting because Harris can bring a lot of receipts on her qualifications. Donald only has run failing businesses, so it's really tough for him to bring any receipts. I don't know that he has proof of anything that he's done well. I'm open for correction on that, but I'm just not sure he's done anything very well. He effectively buried his ex-wife on a golf course because he did that well. Harris recounted a story from high school where she helped a friend escape an abusive situation, and that inspired her to become a prosecutor. And I think a lot of women, this is a commentary again, but I think a lot of women really related to this because we have been out here helping each other all along. We have to. That's how it works. She said, this is one of the reasons I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda. And she connected the dots in that personal story. And her ability to blend personal storytelling with her political vision made her message both relatable and powerful. And by sharing the stories from her life, such as his mother's struggles, she humanized her campaign. For instance, when she said, we're all in this together, it has underscored the theme of unity and collective progress. So this obviously worked to reinforce her central theme of fighting for a future where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Okay, so those are the two, just to roughly take you into both of those environments. A Trump environment about being strong, determined, hell-bent on preserving what was America. And then Kamala's unifying, uplifting, we don't even know what we can do yet. We haven't begun to be America, is the second universe. Okay, so here's how the candidates compare in substance and tone. Harris and Trump offered two distinct visions for America, each rooted in their core beliefs and approaches to leadership. Harris spoke of a future where unity, progress, and inclusivity take center stage. And she envisioned, I loved this, an opportunity economy where everyone, regardless of background, has a fair shot at success. Opportunity economy, by the way, when we get into that, that is really aimed at entrepreneurs like me, small business owners, entrepreneurs, people with an idea, people who see problems they want to solve in their community and think that there's a way to monetize it so they could actually earn a living solving a community problem. Can you imagine? That's how it should work. You should be able to make money fixing problems. It's like the whole plumbing industry was built on that. The whole plumbing industry. So there you go. While Trump, her speech was optimistic and asked for the nation to, I'm sorry, I'm so excited about opportunity economy. Anyway, her speech was optimistic, calling for the nation to move forward together and building on shared values and collective strength. Trump focused on restoring what he sees as America's greatness that's been lost, especially under the current administration. His speech was marked by, remember, this is the same grievance he had after Obama was president for 8 years. So he's consistent is what I'm saying. His speech was marked by a defiant and patriotic tone, mixing his vision with a sense of urgency. He portrayed himself as a resilient leader, ready to fight for the country's future and defend traditional values that he believes are under threat. And he emphasized the need to reclaim the past and stand strong against what he described as the failures of current leadership. I can translate that into the stupid word they use, which is wokeness. And I'll be woke any day, because woke means lights are on, somebody's home, and my eyes are open. Like, hello, I'm woke. Yep, I wish everybody was woke. And then we could have a good discussion, because at least you're listening and your ears are open. They both defined two different approaches to listening and leading. Harris promised to be a president for all Americans, committing to unity and inclusivity. She spoke about how important it is to listen to different viewpoints and uphold democratic norms. Not Democrat norms, democratic norms, those that belong to a democracy. Norms that are based on our democracy, not Democrat. There's no such thing as Republican norms. I mean, there might be within the party, but that's not what she's talking about here. Her approach to leadership is grounded in fairness, integrity, and a belief in the power of collective action. That's really important. We saw that with all the groups for Kamala. Collective action. It was a glorious thing. In contrast, Trump positioned himself as a fighter for American people, particularly against the perceived failures of the Biden administration. He stressed the importance of strong, decisive leadership, presenting him as the only candidate capable of restoring the country's former glory. He's only one. He's on a mission from God. Sorry. Yeah, you're going to get a little snark. I told you. Be warned. Snark is part of this deal. The focus on the middle class was another area where the visions diverged. Harris highlighted her plan to build a strong middle class, create an economy where everyone has the chance to succeed. She spoke of ensuring that the opportunities are available to all, emphasizing the need for government intervention to support social programs like Social Security, and Medicare. Trump, meanwhile, emphasized bringing back American industry jobs and focusing on supporting American workers and protecting traditional values. His vision centered on economic growth and reducing taxes, with less emphasis on social programs. That's right. It's all going to be about a spreadsheet, people. I do not know, after working for hedge fund guys in Silicon Valley and watching what they do not bring to the party. They do not bring innovation. They do not bring ideas. They do not bring anything but a spreadsheet and ruthless manipulation of an organization to meet their calculations. That's it. But these are not innovators. And that's what I find similar about how Trump's approaching America, which is we are a giant spreadsheet, and all you have to do is line up the right receipts and debits, and hopefully it'll all work out. And that's how you run a business. It's not how you run a country. It's just not how you run a country. Running a country like a business, look around. How many of your friends, how many times have you lost a job? Because a business is based on a spreadsheet, not on you. A country is not a business. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I don't care. I want Citizens United overturned. A country is about its citizenry, not anything else. Just a second. My soapbox, I got to push it back under my desk. Okay. I'm almost done. So you can tell I get all wound up as I get near the end. On reproductive rights, Harris was clear and strong in her stance. She criticized Trump for appointing the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade and promised to restore and protect reproductive freedom. Trump didn't address reproductive rights in his speech, focusing instead on broader themes of national strength and our ability to withstand significant challenges. I think having to have a baby when you don't want one is a really significant challenge. Open leadership versus closed leadership. Which will better serve America? Harris emphasized America's role on the world stage, particularly in strengthening alliances and supporting Ukraine. By the way, there is Russian scandal today. If you haven't looked, go look. Somebody named Dukov. I've got to get this story, but there is some news breaking today on the Russian front. and I think it's good. He's been arrested in France, and wow, I think apparently it's quite a coup. And he might have done it on purpose. That's the cooiest weird part. Okay. So she spoke of leading in space. Guys, do you remember the space race? It was such glory. Leading in space and artificial intelligence, positioning America as a global leader for the 21st century. Hey, that's right now. Trump's speech, however, focused more on national security and protecting America's interests, with less emphasis on global alliances and leadership. For me, that is important. So you decide where you need to be with global alliances, but for me, that is an incredibly important issue. And I believe that alliances really do help us as U.S. It helps a democracy, and I believe it also helps our economy and our security. So there you go. Those are big issues. And then protecting us at home is important, and here's what they had to say. Harris didn't stop criticizing Trump's past actions, particularly his response to the 2020 election and the events of January 6th, 2021. I mean, quite possibly one of the worst events in our history was Trump's fault. Like, he did it. And here we are. If you're like me, you still don't even understand how he's able to run. Like, I had to pass more tests to work at the preschool. There was so many checks, background checks, everything. I had to go through so much to work at the preschool, and here we are. Trump, in contrast, is on domestic leadership. Trump, in contrast, criticized Biden's administration for the handling of the economy, immigration, and national security, framing Trump's candidacy as a necessary correction to these perceived failures. While Harris emphasized social justice and equality, speaking about the importance of inclusivity and protecting civil rights, Trump focused on defending traditional American values without an emphasis on social justice. Their views on the role of government reflected these differences, with Harris advocating for government intervention to protect freedoms. Get that. She wants to use the government to protect our freedoms. That's like literally the Constitution. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Use our laws and the government to protect our freedoms. Hello. And to support the middle class. At the same time, Trump suggested a government role focused on protecting American interests and supporting economic growth. And we're going to dig into that government role, but I believe that's policing of our bodily functions is one of the government roles I've heard from Project 2025. I don't need anybody paying attention to my body. I barely do. Okay, so your job as a voter and your job as an advocate for the Harris-Walz campaign is to understand these differences and then help people understand that really, when you boil it down, I call them a paradigm, but that's really that, you can call them different houses on the Barbie island. I don't care what you want, but it's a paradigm is a way that a worldview. So you can choose the paradigm that best fits your worldview. I happen to be an open systems, all things are possible, optimistic worldview. That's just kind of me. And I trust people, fundamentally trust them. Some worldviews don't trust, is suspicious. This can happen to you after you've been harmed. You become suspicious and your worldview is everybody's trying to hurt you. And there's nothing good out there. And the only good that I have is fortunate and because of something I did, not because of what's happening in the world. So that's worldviews and paradigms. So let me give you the two paradigms here so you can hopefully go influence and help people understand this. If you have somebody that needs to understand this at a meta level, here you go. This is really meta. Kamala spoke of moving forward with optimism and faith, focusing on the possibilities that lie ahead. Her speech was hopeful and centered on progress, with a strong emphasis on unity and inclusivity. She highlighted her commitment to protecting democracy and civil rights, conveying a sense of compassion as she discussed social justice and the personal stories that shaped her vision. She aimed to inspire and uplift and absolutely motivated her audience towards collective action for a better future. That's completely my worldview. I think that's why I was an emotional wreck last week, feeling so seen for the first time in years. Okay, here's the other paradigm. Donald Trump emphasized the need to restore past greatness. This is really important because you need to understand what past greatness means. And that right there is probably the most toxic part of this whole thing. Because that's really where you tap that Christian white nationalist behavior. The racism, the hate, the misogyny, the rule making, not policies, rules, the violence, the force, the always dealing with everything in anger. So we need to know what our past greatness is. So because I just interjected, let me start again from the beginning so you can really get clear here on the worldview. Trump emphasized the need to restore past greatness, urging Americans to fight against perceived threats to the country's values and way of life. His tone was defiant and patriotic, reflecting his deep love for America and his desire to protect its core values. Trump portrayed himself as a resilient leader ready to face any challenge, and his speech carried a sense of urgency about the importance of the upcoming election. You bet it did. There was a combative edge to his words, focusing on the need to overcome opposition and restore the nation's strength. Their speeches highlighted two starkly different paths for America. Trump's worldview centers on restoring America's past greatness through strength and determination, while Harris's worldview focuses on building a future defined by unity, inclusivity, and progress. Both offer voters a clear choice moving forward between progress or strength. Okay, in looking toward the future, Harris spoke of moving forward with optimism and faith. Trump emphasized the need to restore past greatness, and the speeches are just, I need to go out with a big bang here, and I can't because I'm still gobsmacked by the differences in these speeches. And it's good. This is good. You want differences. It's just that the differences are, they differ on some things that I just wouldn't have expected. And honestly, and it's some of what's not spoken. It's differing on racism. I think all jobs are black jobs, but I know Trump doesn't. And I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get why that's persuasive. It's disgusting, right? It's disgusting. But we really do have two choices here. And so as a Harris soldier, and you go out there and we're doing the work of the campaign, I'm hoping you having this compare and contrast will really help you. I'm going to add the table. I haven't finished it yet today, but I'm going to add the table to the blog. This is all in the blog if you need it. And I'll go, I didn't link yesterday. I'll go link all the source speeches so you have the actual speeches themselves. And I'll even throw in a link to the, I should just put that on everything, a link to the platform so that you can find the platform quickly because it is a little bit hard to find. DNC, it's a little hard to find. So I'll provide that too. It'll all be on my blog page. So whenever you get the podcast, if you look in the description of the podcast, I try to make sure you have a link in there to the companion blog. If you click that, I hope it works on everybody's phones. If you click that, you should be able to go to the blog and then I'll put these, the links will be with the candidate's name, the first instance of the candidate's name, which is a subhead I use on every one of these blogs. There's a subhead for each of these speeches. That's where I'll put the link to the speech. And then the link to the platform, both platforms, I'll put at the very top. So you can just get them. If you just open the blog, you can get both platforms. And I'll give you RNC and DNC for 2024. So you have both. And then I'm going to start to dig into it. Anyway, we've got work to do. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday. I hope everybody's getting rest. I heard a ton of people at the DNC got COVID. We need your booties to be well. So please rest and then rest a little bit more. You can do some of the passive things. Go look at my PACE assessment. You can do some of the passive jobs of getting involved, to get involved in the campaign that don't require you blowing out your body right now as you recover from COVID. And I'm sorry, but please wear masks, folks. It's really on the rise right now, and schools are back in session, and they're predicting quite a miserable time. All right, there, I got my COVID commercial in. But we need every soldier, that's why. So let's go do this. Thank you for listening. Share this with a friend, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure you subscribe and rate, and I'll be back with another episode really soon.